Here is Pam.
Okay, I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council meeting. We will call this meeting to order at 5:11 p.m. Today's date is Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. We had a Board of Appeals earlier today, and so we're going to start the regular council agenda, which is immediately following the Board of Appeals conclusion of that meeting. So Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Barabo,
Present.
Lieb,
Here.
Paulson,
Here.
Beyondich,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Baranzelli,
Here.
Coffee.
Present. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 4 on the agenda, which is a public forum. Is there anybody, Pam or Britt, that's on the line waiting to answer a question or address the council? There are none. So move to item 5, which is the consent agenda. The following items will be enacted by one motion unless a councilor or a citizen of the city of Virginia requests that the item be considered separately. Item 5.1 is the approval and corrections of the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on April 14th, 2020. Item 5.2, the adoption of finance resolution number 20-008, the schedule of bills. Those are the consent agenda items for tonight's meeting. I'm looking for a motion from the council moving forward. Councilor Bearable.
Also move the consent agenda.
Councilor Bearable moves the consent agenda for approval. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to pull out 5.2 and have two specific items I'd like to address.
Sure, certainly. Councilor Paulson requests that item 5.2 on the consent agenda be removed for further discussion. Item 5.2, further discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in looking over the schedule of bills, again, I noticed that Compudyne is listed on our schedule of bills in the amount of $4,490.57. I know our contract was terminated with them, I think in 2018, 2018 or 19. Yes, yeah, it was,
No, not 8, was it 18? Or 19,
or
yes,
19,
yes,
excuse me.
correct, yes.
And so I guess I'd like to, under the understanding is there's an overlap with services between Compudyne and Pantheon, and that was supposed to be wrapped up in March. And I would like to withhold this payment until we get that cleared up. And so that would be my recommendation regarding that bill. I would like them to give us a reasonable timeframe of when they will be finished up and transferred over to Pantheon. So I would request that we withhold that payment until we can have, at that time, such a conversation with Compudyne. I mean, we're in the middle of cutting everything that we can cut right now, and I think it's responsible to look at this bill.
Okay, this first item, do we have any information about that bill? What's the, why this is being in our bill run this time?
Yep, we've been
Thank
working
you.
with Pantheon since we have entered into a contract with them to upgrade our system. The bill that's in the bill run is for storage of our data. They still have all of our data on their servers. We have not gotten to the point yet that we are ready to purchase the server yet. And so that's our next step, and we're coming to you very shortly with the server quote. Today, they were going to do the fiber switch. They were going to put we have a fiber switch for our internet. The one we have is approximately 15 to 16 years old. They were going to put a new one in today. I begged them to not do it before the council meeting because we never have good luck with that kind of thing. So they're going to do that tomorrow, and hopefully everything will go well. And we've slowly been working with every department has a switch in their office or a firewall. We've been slowly replacing everything as we go along, building up to the point of putting a server in. If you go into Chris Johnson's or Chris Marfiati's office, she can show you the new server closet we're building. And we are slowly putting the new components in on almost a month-to-month basis. We've been putting in pieces as we go along, building up to the new server.
And I think that was my understanding, but it was also my understanding that this would be wrapped up, and I'm concerned that this is being dragged out.
On our side, we had a huge hiccup when we replaced the initial firewall. We had staff when the internet speeds dropped to almost zero. So staffs weren't able to do anything for quite a long time. So it took a long time in convincing that there was an issue with some firms. And so now we're finally, I believe that's working correct, Sherry. Nothing is wrong with the Cassell server anymore. We're doing okay.
Okay, so maybe, I think maybe to satisfy what I'm requesting is
Yep.
that we get something in formality of when this is going to be wrapped up. So
Our
that
next
we're-
steps, if I can get that to you.
What our next steps are, so
Yep.
that we can know how much expenditure we can expect over the next few months.
Absolutely.
Then the next item I had is under.
If I may, Councilor Paulson, did you still want that payment, looking for a motion to withhold that payment?
Can we make a motion when there's already a motion on the floor?
Yep, but would that be we're withholding there's a motion on the consent agenda, but we pulled this one for discussion. So,
Right, at this time, I think I would like just to see a plan put in place,
okay,
and I'm okay with that if that's the recommendation.
yeah, that makes them, yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah,
that
good, very good point. Set point number 2.
Point number 2 is our contract services with the Tennis for All. And my concern is that the Tennis for All building is closed, so I'd like to understand what that relationship is right now.
Sherry?
We are pulling that check, so it will not be in the bill run, because as long as the building is closed due to governor's orders, we will stop that.
And then is there a plan going forward with the program? That's just going to depend on the opening up of our city.
Yeah, the Nets went on the outside courts today. So the outside courts are open with signage saying stay 6 feet apart. Try not to touch the ball if you don't have to. Other social distancing requirements.
Okay,
But the building, of course, is because of governor's orders until he releases them.
okay, thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Thank you for the catch.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson, for pulling those 2 items out for further discussion and clarification. Does anybody have anything else you'd like to add to the concerns and the questions or comments that Councilor Paulson has brought forth to the council this evening? Okay, seeing none, 5.2 stays on the agenda, so the motion on the floor is, once 5.2 has been discussed, the motion on the floor has been moved and supported to approve the entire consent agenda, items 5.1 and 5.2. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Item 6, we have appearances, limited 10 minutes. Is this where we want to bring Carl Sanderson forward, or does that come under committee reports? Okay, this is regarding the, what's the topic for Carl Sanderson tonight?
Item number 9.1E.
9.1E? Okay. If it's okay with the council, before we move to the rest of the committee reports, if we could move to item 9.1E, which is the adoption of a resolution approved through the change order request for the Ewens Field demolition project, less any credits. That's the item on the agenda. Does anybody on the council have any opposition to moving that up on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, let's discuss this even further. So what is the issue? We discussed, I think you have some notes there. If you would please refresh all of us and those who may be listening at home, the specific issues moving forward under 9.1E.
At the committee of the whole meeting, we discussed the redevelopment of the Owens Field project and the demolition. The bids due to modification by the school, removing bleachers and other materials there. The bid that we had received for the demolition has increased. It initially had increased to approximately $15,000 over the first bid. However, Carl Sanderson has brought forward a revised guaranteed maximum price estimate submittal in the amount of $150,880.29.
Okay?
$150,880.29. Approximately 2,700, is that 3,700? I'm sorry, Steve and Eric, do you know the difference between the two numbers? The original 147.
And so a part of that was, I think, we as a council, asked and directed staff to get a hold of our School District 706 Superintendent, Mr. Noel Schmidt, to discuss, the issue with respect to the gap in that funding that we have based on the demolition quotes from Mesaba Bituminous. And I know there was some discussion about who is responsible for this and how did this come about, and the miscommunications that occurred between a bunch of parties involved in this matter. I know that the school district assumed ownership of the bleachers unbeknownst to us. We were under the impression that that was part of our demolition program moving forward. The school, without our knowledge, and not intentionally, I would assume, but without our knowledge, at a school board meeting, decided that they were going to put that out for bids and put it on due bid, and then that was purchased by Holmes Recycling. Holmes Recycling became dismantling of that facility. It was brought to the attention of the low bidder, who was Mesaba Bituminous, that these bleachers were on the due bid. And part of Mesaba Bituminous's bidding process was that the bleachers would be there for demolition, and they used that part of the bleacher as part of their estimate because they were going to recycle those bleachers and sell them as part of their package. They were unable to do so. And there's a loss of about $15,000 there, or a little bit more than that. I don't know exactly the amount of money that was being proffered there, but there's a gap, and that's what created the gap, and we had some significant discussion at the committee level with respect to this. And so there's some, between the school and Carl Sanderson and the city of Virginia, at no fault of Mesaba Bituminous, this came about, and so we have this gap here. We're trying to figure it out. We did have some communication. I think our city administrator had some communication with Noel Schmidt, the superintendent of the school district. Maybe you could maybe address any communication that you may have. Is there anything that you can add or dispense, or he's going to look into it, or how did that conversation go, Britt?
The discussion we had was that the school board feels that they did nothing wrong, and I'm paraphrasing here, that's not the exact terms. That
Sure.
They are unclear of how the communication breakdown occurred, because they were very, very adamant that they owned all the property on top of the field, that we own the land and they own the...
And, and I understand that there's a miscommunication there, but I know during the course of this process, it's a multi-million-dollar process, and these kind of glitches come into play. They shouldn't, but they do. And I recall in some conversations that we had about that process is that we were going to get ready to bid out the demolition, that the school had wanted to take might want to take the goalpost, but we're going to take the scoreboard because that was donated by Coca-Cola several years ago. And so they were removing everything out of there. And it was my understanding that we came to that agreement, okay, everything's done. They got everything they needed out of there. And now we were going to move forward with the demolition bids, and that's what we did. And then there was no discussion about them keeping the bleachers in those conversations, right? So there was some confusion there. So that being said, a little bit of background information for those who are listening at home, and a little encapsulate a little bit of recall from my perspective. Councillor Johnson?
I couldn't find the initial bid package one with the original numbers in it anywhere, because I'm really, really struggling with the math, and as a math teacher, that frustrates me. The revised bid package comes in more than the original bid package, even though there's considerably less work to do. And I'm trying to understand these numbers, and as it feels like every time we have a conversation with Kraus Anderson in this room, we get talked down to because we don't understand how construction works. And that is a true statement. I'm not a construction manager, I'm a math teacher. But I don't understand how the base bid was $114,000 with a lot of extra numbers, so that went up $6,000. But nothing has changed in the general contracting, even though there's less work for the contractor at risk to do because there's less work to do. So I'm really struggling at how we went from the original 144 and some change to 150 and some change when the contractor at risk should be doing less work, and therefore there should be less charged to us by the management company. That's where I'm at. I don't understand why. And the other thing that bothers me is that it seems like whenever we put out a budget, if we say the budget's $143,612.14, the estimate comes exactly at 14 cents. And no matter what happens when we change something, that final number is always exactly our budget. And that, when I adjust things, when I'm budgeting things, usually that last number changes because I've made adjustments to my budget. So I don't understand, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that less work, less to do, and yet higher price. The other part of that is, which was brought up on last week, is the school took their property, which they believed was theirs, but they left part of their property. They left the footings, they left the chunks of concrete where the poles are, they left a bunch of stuff too. So they've only recovered part of what is theirs. If they were going to take everything that was theirs, then the field should be relatively empty already. So I feel like there's a double standard on that side of the equation too, that they took up the value, which renters do. I've been a landlord. Renters have a tendency to take what's of value and lift the mess for the landlords to clean up. And I feel that there's some of that going on here too. So I'm a little frustrated. I don't have an answer. I don't know how to fix this. But I would like to see that how, in real math, not in construction math, how less work equals more money. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. We'll go to Councillor, did you have an answer for that? Councillor Bearbook, could we bring our Park and Rec Director up, Brian Silber, to counter
Yeah,
that?
that's fine.
That's okay with you? Okay, please come forward, Brian
This is
Silber.
Pam.
Pam, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello?
Yep, I had lost everybody for a minute there.
Okay, Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director, is now addressing the council.
Yes, Councilor Johnson, to answer your question in simplest terms possible for the reason for the increase. In the original bid that we received for the demolition, yes, there was more work to do, but we were receiving a credit for what the contractor could salvage, which was the bleacher system. Once that bleacher system was gone, the credit was gone, so that increased it. Now, what was presented at the committee of the whole meeting as compared to what is being presented at today's meeting, there is a discrepancy in that. The number has gone down. That is due to we will not have to remove the building on the west side of the football field, and also Carl Sanderson has agreed to lower some of their fees because the time for the demolition will be shorter than it was originally, so their fees are being decreased. Does that sufficiently answer your question?
So can we get a picture of what the original bid was, what it was last Thursday, and what it is now? I guess I haven't seen those three numbers all lined up nice and neat. Can someone lay those out so I can write them down and get that? Because I think that's what my confusion is that there's nothing to compare these things as we're moving forward. So I understand, and I'm guessing that because the school took the fencing, now that's actually gonna cost us more later when we have to put fencing up around the perimeter of the construction site. Is that an accurate?
Correct, that is accurate.
So
Does anybody have those three numbers that we can?
I don't have the three, but I have the original demo quote was 144,391.44. And this one today is 150,880. 29 cents for a difference of $6,488.85.
Mr. Trudeau from Carl Sanderson, would you like to come up and tag team here with our Park and Rec Director? Okay.
Mayor, if I might, what I'm
Yes,
looking at.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. From the committee of the whole minutes, the bottom number here was 149.8635. Does that sound right? That's from the demolition revised April 22nd, 2020. Duration now 2 weeks with some yellow on it. So today's bid is actually still $1,000 more than last week's bid.
Maybe help in that.
Mr. Trudeau, would you come up to the microphone here so that the people in the audience can hear and aren't listening at home? Thank you. Mr. Trudeau from Carl Sanderson.
That number 149.
149.8635, or 846, pardon.
Britt, that might have been the preliminary number where we offered to remove the cost of the performance and payment bond as well, which could still be valid if you choose to do that. We could reduce that number to 149. By keeping the performance and payment bond cost in, which was my understanding, talking to that brings us up to the current number that you're seeing of 150.
Okay.
And I guess I do have another question about the logistics. When Masabi Bituminous came, and they were here on last Tuesday and said, we saw this and we called whoever, Kraus Anderson, and said, hey, what's going on? Why did nobody from the construction at risk, the contractor, go to the stadium and go, just stop and wait a second? Like, why was there no pause on any of what was happening at the stadium until someone could have some communication?
Mr. Trudeau?
Yes, as soon as we did find out that there was this bid auction happening, we contacted Brian and had that conversation. Brian contacted the school district, I believe, to understand what was transpiring. And it was obviously too late to stop any kind of a bid auction that was already going on right through Easter weekend. And we essentially had already bid the portion with the Mesabi prior to any of this transpiring. So in essence, we did have kind of a pause because we were waiting at that point to find out what the results from the school auction would be.
Did you contact the school at that time and go, what's going on with the auction, and can we wait till we start taking stuff down till we figure this out?
Again, I believe Brian Silber contacted the school district as soon as we did find out.
Did we ask them to not take anything down until we could figure this out?
Mr. Silber?
They were adamant that the property belonged to them and it was theirs to remove. The school was adamant that it was their property and they have the right to remove it.
Are they gonna come get the rest of it then?
As you so eloquently put it, you have been a landlord and you get left with what you are left with.
I appreciate, and I'm very frustrated with this. One of the big frustrations is that Kraus Anderson is a part of both projects, and I would hope that in the future, as we're moving forward, there is some sort of communication within Kraus Anderson as they're moving forward, when there's something related to both the city and the school, that there's some communication at that level so that our administrators and our staff and their staff can all be in the same loop. I want to work together with the school. It's an amazing project. The two of these coming together at the same time is something that probably never happens anywhere. But I think that means that we have to be doing some special stuff as we're moving forward with the communication. And I would hope that Kraus Anderson has hopefully learned something from this and will be able to keep us updated regularly and keep the school and the school board updated regularly as well. Unfortunately, the city is going to probably end up footing the bill for this mistake, and hopefully there are no more mistakes to pay for.
As we do move forward, we have already opened those lines of communication with the school board for the second portion of the demolition, that being the existing minors. As you're well aware, the back locker rooms that serve as both the hockey locker rooms and the football locker rooms, that is a school building. The school built that portion and has that outfitted and equipped with all of their stuff. We've already begun the discussion of what they will be leaving in there at the end of their use of the facility next year, when they will be vacating the facility. So we are improving our lines of communication with the school district. Those conversations have been had with both Dr. Schmidt and Athletic Director Lampa.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Trudeau?
Yeah, I would just like to offer, I certainly understand frustration and appreciate the comment. And do apologize, we could have done a better internal at Kraus Anderson job, office to office, with the school district folks. We've had some discussions. We do actually have a call about every 2 weeks or so. But we're going to step that up and do exactly that per your request. So we do hear you loud and clear, and apologize for any inconvenience that may have caused.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trudeau. Anything else, Councilor Johnson? Okay, we'll move for Councilor Paulson. Councilor Paulson, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like, and I'm speaking loudly for Pam, I'd like to get some clarification. So the original demo quote that Britt just sent us all in an email was $144,391. 44 revised is $150,8829, difference of $6,488.85. When we are spending money, what is the threshold that the vote needs to be a 5-2 vote?
That's it.
Spend money, takes a 5-2 supermajority vote on the council.
Right, so, and is that on any dollar amount? Or is it under a dollar amount or over a dollar amount?
any money that's spent, any contract that's approved, is my understanding. I would ask for clarification from Britt, do you have that information? But that's been my understanding. If we're spending money on a contract, that any time we spend money, we need a 5-2 vote.
That is my understanding, but we could ask our city attorney,
Yeah,
Lupesh.
thank you.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. That is my understanding as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
you.
that is
Sorry
correct,
for any
Councilor
doubt.
Paulson.
Thank you, Bhupesh, and thank you for that clarification. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to go back to our original discussion at the committee level that I was actually Zoom in at that time. And my concern was with a statement that Steve Trudeau had made that he was in contact with the city and was given documentation regarding the contents on the property. And we have to be careful when we're saying property versus contents, so I'm trying to be careful in my verbiage. And what basically it boiled down to is that there was no communication, there was no document given by the city to Kraus Anderson regarding ownership or contents, the ownership of the contents on the field. So I feel that it would have been Kraus Anderson's responsibility, and it was my request at the time that Kraus Anderson reimburse Mesabi Bituminous for any lack in the bid process. It is also my understanding that the IRRB has granted us $147,250 to move forward on this project. And through email correspondence that Britt has sent through Chris Ismail, IRRB is not going to be able to or willing to fund anything above and beyond the $147,250. So going to the actual bid package that is before us with the changed amount of $150,088.29, I calculate, so what we're doing right now is we're asking employees to possibly take a furlough. We're cutting every corner that we can cut. We have just given, prior to COVID-19, the approval, this city council gave the approval for a $38 million Taj Mahal. And we are being asked to consider, first of all, a $15,000 gap, which I feel is insulting, as we, as a whole entire council, approved the Taj Mahal project. Number two, now that the quote is more reasonable, I would go along with the quote and I would vote yes. If Kraus Anderson's fee could be waived, and that fee difference waiving of $2,750 would change that amount of their fee to $930.01, which would equate to $147,250, which is the specific amount of the grant from the IRRB. At this time, I cannot vote for any additional spending out of any fund at all during this pandemic time. I think it's extremely irresponsible. And in voting no, a no vote does not halt the process. It just shifts the burden of the cost. So I want that to be very clear, that if you feel that this is not acceptable, your no vote is not going to hold up the project in any way. It's just shifting the burden of that gap. So at this point, I will go along with it if we can change the construction manager at risk fee, and that would equate to the exact dollar amount that the IRRB has agreed to work with the city on with this demolition process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Baraboo?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm kind of going along on a similar line as Julianne is on this, and I stated it at the meeting the other day. Kraus Anderson is making a windfall on this, okay? Mesabi Bit came in with a $114,000 bid on this project, with $25,000 being for the bleachers that they had on a separate contract from Kraus Anderson. You start taking the differentials between that and the other. I'm going to ask you, what is your percentage on this whole project that you're getting for a consultant fee? I don't remember exactly, but I want you to tell me.
Mr. Trudeau from Kraus Anderson?
Our fee percentage on the overall project is 2.5%.
So you're getting 14.5% on this differential from what you're asking and what, yeah, put the numbers together, sir.
No,
When I add the $15,000 that shorted when we talked about it, that Masabi Bituminous got short, it's 129,000. Subtract that from the 150, 880, and divide it out by the 150, and that's 14.5%. That's a ridiculous amount. We never have any engineering or consultant projects that are that high in the city of Virginia. I think you need to eat it, the rest of this, because I'm not going to go along with this either, that Masabi Bit, I don't want them hurt either, because they do a lot of work for the city. But you have to adjust your percentage on that. Even if you divide it by the lower number, it's still 12.5. Figure it out if you know how to do the math. I know how to do the math. I'm a pharmacist by trade. So I can do any kind of math you want me to do.
Mr. Trudeau?
Our fee is 2.5%. That is our overhead and profit. The other costs are for our site management services, for our personnel that will be staged at the site to manage the project. It's the beginning of the larger project. As you know, it's kind of hard to explain on the phone a week ago to the
So you
committee.
have two different percentages of what you're telling me. Then you have a percentage for people on site and not the overall for the whole project was not what you stated to us originally. And you're going to stick in extra different costs as you manage this project from segment to segment. Is that correct then?
By contract definition, our personnel are a cost of the work. They're
So how
not
much
a
cost did they have?
fee.
How much cost did they have in this demolition? It's not 14.5% because Masabi Bit is doing all the work. You're just sitting there, maybe looking at it once in a while. I'm really torqued off about what you guys are doing on this. You're making a huge profit on this since the money is coming from a grant from the IRRB. And you're getting $30,000 basically out of this deal from that grant. 29,000 is for differential in there. But if you go to the high price, it's $30,000.
Look at the breakdown of the cost that I hope was included with your packet. That will
I
show
didn't see that.
all of
Do
the
you have
costs that we
I didn't get that.
are getting. And that is a guaranteed maximum cost, meaning, you know, as we adjust it based on the current scope of work, it will not exceed that. If there are any savings to those dollars, that is not our money, that is your money, and we return that, or just don't bill for it, obviously 100% at the end. So if we do not need to be there for 2 weeks, if the demolition happens in 1 week, there's additional savings that can go back to you. We do have a contingency of $4,000 still built into that number. If that is not spent, that goes back to you. So we are not asking for additional fees. Our true overhead and profit fee by our contract with the City of Virginia is 2.5%. Our site services, our management time to properly manage any work, whether it's the beginning of the stadium demo or the larger project, is considered a cost of the work.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Trudeau. Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, explain to me that again, Mr. Trudeau. How, when you were basically the pass-through for this city to get the bids, correct, for this project, where are your huge costs in going out to get bids for that project? Where are they, other than stating what's there and et cetera to whoever goes out to bid, to your, basically, your site stuff that's there? Is that a $30,000 cost to you folks?
I'm not sure I followed the question, that the cost of
Okay,
what's
well,
there
you
today.
put the bids out on this, correct? We did not as a city, correct, Brett? You put
Correct.
the bids, the request for bids in.
Yes, we went solicited
Masabi
quotes.
bid came in at 114,000 plus the 25 they expected to get from the bleachers for the side sale.
Original
correct?
bid, correct.
But you're still wanted 144,394, correct? It's $30,000 differential there. So you're telling me to put out plans and specs for that demolition for bid, it's a $30,000 package from your help? What are you charging per hour and how many hours did it take you to do that? I can't believe with all the stuff I've been through, the RFPs and all the rest of in my 26 years in this council, that's not an excessive profit. I think you should eat the differential, your company, on this. And give Masabi bit their extra 15,000 that they're asking for. We can do something with you on that, I believe, the city, because there was lack of communication. There's no question about that between the projects.
Mr. Trudeau, anything else you'd like to add?
I can only ask and urge you to look at the math sheet that we provided. We're not asking for that in full. It is a guaranteed maximum price. If you do not wish us to be here overseeing that work, that is a big risk to understand safety and the involvement and the coordination work that is still necessary, dealing, with public utilities. I get it, we're not physically taking out a hammer and removing bricks and mortar, but we are doing site management services and coordinating the work, which does take time and energy on top of what Mesabi Bituminous is doing as your construction manager to be sure the work is done safely, correctly, and in accordance with what was asked. But I fully understand, this is stirring a lot of emotion in how we got to today, whether it's miscommunication. We certainly want to put it to bed as well. We don't want any ill feelings. We don't want Councilor Baraboo or any of the councilors thinking we're charging exorbitant fees. We're not. We have a very competitive 2.5% overhead and profit fee to manage all of your project-associated, costs with the Miners Arena. We certainly, again, this is a guaranteed maximum price. We will work to get it back to the original 144. Absolutely, we'll work that hard. If that means looking at our fee of the 2.5% or the site management, we'll do that. I'd like to move this forward. We'll offer that right now and say, fine, let's go back to the 144 and move forward.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Baraboo?
Yeah, I just don't want Masabi Bituminous getting hosed in this, okay? Because we use them too much in the city for small projects that you have trouble finding for work in the city with streets and et cetera. So I guess if you're willing to go back to the 144, whatever is 394, I can stomach that.
We don't like it. I don't feel that the whole issue was brought up through any fault of our own. It was simply a misunderstanding between the school and the salvage value. But we understand. I mean, we want to stand up here and do the right thing and move this project forward. So if that's what it takes, we're willing to do that and bring it back to 144.
Still get $18,000 out of it plus.
Anything
Sorry, I
else?
don't mean to sound critical, but I've been through so many of these over the years, Mr. Trudeau, that as long as your communications will be better between the two projects, you got both projects, the school and the cities. And I don't know how much more there's going to be in combination. There's the back part of the miners, and Brian already said that's already better communicated for, so. All right. What do we need to do, Brett? Do we need to work up some new agreement then, or what do we need to do? I want Masabi Bituminous to get their additional 15 out of this deal.
Today's discussion was about the change order number 1 for the $6,488.85. Ross Anderson is agreeing that they're going to hold back down to the 144. We would just need to, if we haven't, Pam, you might want to correct me if I'm wrong, if we haven't already approved that, we just need to approve it, accepting the quote, 144.
Correct. We have not approved that yet.
Steve, can you make that decision here tonight? Okay, I have no problem.
All right, thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Johnson?
As I've been sitting here, I'm noticing an exponential effect on the billing, and maybe you can explain how this works. the stadium demolition bid what came in at 120. I'm just going to use these numbers because they're in front of me. So the first fee that is charged by Kraus Anderson is $2 a week times 1051, whatever that is. And then that number is added, 2126 is added to 120 for, then we're billed 0.0069% on 1,000 or 141,026. And then that fee is added on. And then the next umbrella insurance fee is $142,000 times 0.0079 for another 1,121. That is then added for a total of 143.21, and then 2.85% is taken to that for a total of total is $4,078, and for a total of $147.20, and then the 2.5% is put on that. So we're exponentially adding fees as we're going down. Can you explain to me why the 2.85% isn't put on first, or why they are added exponentially that way? Why is the largest fee added last and not first? Because those little dimes add up to a couple $1,000s as they're added on. So can you explain why they're added on in that order?
Yes, I can. Because by contract, the insurance and the bonding are also considered cost of the work, our fee takes into account, our fee is based on the total cost of the work. Arguably, we could take the contingency 2.85% line item and put it below the line, if you will, below the fee. In either case, at the end of the day, we would only charge 2.5% on the total cost of the work. So our fee would get adjusted down accordingly by any unspent, dollars.
I appreciate that explanation, but I think that's one of the places where we're getting stuck, is that it's compound fees. They're not individual fees on the 120, on the 120,000. They're compounding as we add them on. So I think that's something, and if that's standard practice, okay, but I'll definitely take that lesson and learn that as we move forward, that as we're going down the list, the placement of the fees and the percentages, it really makes a big impact on the bottom line. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So today's, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Paulson? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess I'm looking now for clarification with this revised, going back to the original of, sorry, Britt, I got to go back into your email.
On 144,391.44, $144,391.44.
Okay, so what are the effects then to Mesabi bituminous? Are they more favorable doing it this way than the new bid from today?
I think if I may answer that, if correct me if I'm wrong, if I understand this entire process correctly, that under 9.1E, which is the adopt the resolution to approve the change order request for the Union Field demolition project less any credits, would be a moot point. We wouldn't be voting upon that, but we need to vote on the bid award to Mesaba Bituminous in that amount of $144,391.44. So that's what we would be doing. We would be approving the original bid by Mesaba Bituminous, which is a low bid. Any costs associated with that, as indicated by Kraus Anderson, would be, and in your words, Councilor Bearable, would eat the cost. So we would be bidding on the original, which is the low bid agreement, or the low bid from Mesaba Bituminous. They wouldn't be out their money, they would receive their money, and the gap that would be covered under an agreement by Kraus Anderson, who had verbally agreed to do that. Is that correct, Britt?
Would actually be, we would approve the guaranteed maximum price estimate for Owens Field redevelopment project, stadium demolition, in the amount of $144,000.
$391.44.
44 cents.
Okay, thank you.
And that would come then underneath the IRRB's grant, which is great.
Because when I had submitted that grant, I had also included the $2,750 for the miners' asbestos inspection. So it would cover those two things.
Excellent. Okay, so, and this again is more favorable to Mesabi Bituminous, that they will not then be taking the hit on, as they would with this $150,000 bid from today. Okay, I can go along with that.
Yeah, they would be receiving their bid moving forward, and then that's what we wouldn't be moving on the change order, we'd be moving on the base bid by Mesaba Bituminous. Mr. Trudeau, do you have any further comment?
Want to add, Mesabi Bituminous would be whole in either case. Even at the 150, they're not taking a hit at all. We're making them whole no matter the 150 or the 144.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I just have one more comment.
Please.
And the comment would be this. We're going through an emergency management situation right now in our city, and the fact that we have just dedicated at least 3 to 4 hours to this discussion, and now we're back to the original amount, is extremely frustrating to me as a human being. There are a lot of things going on right now in our country, in our city, with families, and we have just realistically sat here while we were either on Zoom or here in the chambers, because I don't know why. Because people can't really look at what's important. I really don't understand this. And I will say this, and I have a hard time speaking, I guess maybe too frankly, maybe I don't have a problem with that, but I will say this. Going forward, if this is going to be the type of relationship that Kraus Anderson is going to develop and continue to develop with the city, I will probably have to ask for an action step to be taken. And it's not a threat. I'm not going to go through this as a city councilor, nor do I think this body should be going and drag through processes that are unnecessary. So I guess maybe I would just say that please, next time you come before the council, be more mindful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So what we'd like to do, is that Pam?
Yes, it is. So we actually did approve the original quote that was presented to the council at the April 14th council meeting.
Okay, so
This
that,
was only, at this meeting, it was just a resolution for the change order for the increase.
okay, thank
So
you.
I
So-
guess we could ask the attorney if we have to actually make another motion or not, since we already did approve it.
Well, the question would be then, if we've already approved the base bid for Mesaba Bituminous and they're going to be made whole, then the action we should be taking under 9.1E is to deny the change order request. So I think that's what we do, and I think that addresses the issues that you have, Councilor Paulson, we all have about the base bid. Mesaba Bituminous will not be held liable and moving forward. So Mr. Patney, you have a recommendation?
I do, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, you had it correct. If you're going to be denying the change order, then the original resolution that was voted on still stands, so you don't need to re-vote on that one.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so there is, under item 9.1, unless there's any other discussion moving forward, under item 9.1E, adopt a resolution to approve the change order request for Union Fields demolition project, less any credits. That's on the agenda for a motion. We can either come in a form of motion and act upon it or not act upon it, right? So what is the pleasure of the council? I think the recommendation would be to deny the request of the change order and let the original bid stand. So thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Councilor Johnson?
Question.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the attorneys have said is to make sure we're making positive motions so they're easier. When someone makes a motion, it's not a requirement to vote yes on that motion. You can just be making the motion to have the discussion. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So
sure.
I would make the motion that we approve the change order request for Owens Field demolition, less any as presented, because then I can choose to vote accordingly afterwards.
Okay, that's your motion? Motion on the floor by Councilor Johnson is to move forward with the adoption of a resolution for a vote, right, to approve the change order request of Ewens Field demolition project, less any credits. Is there support for that motion? Is there support for that motion? Is there support for that motion? Motion fails for lack of support. So, even though it's not recommended that we do a motion in the negative in this particular instance, it seems to be the general consensus of the council that we do not want to adopt this change order, a resolution to approve the change order. We want to keep it the way it is. So, Councillor Johnson.
To the lack of support, I would think the resolution is dead anyway. I don't think any further action would be needed because there wasn't support to move forward with it at all.
Okay, thank you. Let's get a clarification from our city attorney. Do we have to act on this resolution? Could we just let it die and not act on it once it's been brought before us?
You can just let it die. If you don't want to act on it. That's
Okay,
correct.
very good. Thank you very much. Okay, anything else to be discussed under 9.1E?
Just, Mayor, just
Councillor Bearable.
one comment. Mr. Trudeau, even though I got, upset with the situation, we've had Carl Anderson here as a city many times for projects. We appreciate, I do anyway, the work that you've done in the past. So don't take this to heart. Just keep doing good work on this, and we'll get this communication back in order so we don't have another issue like this. I don't want to see another one.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Steve, anything else you'd like to add? Okay, Eric, you're here as okay. Nothing from Matt on this matter? Okay, thank you. All right, let's, Councillor Freely.
I just wanted to thank Steve too also for being willing to incur the costs that came up that were an unanticipated loss on the part of Mesabi Bituminous, and you're willing to accept the responsibility for that. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Well, while we move in the project, the agenda around a little bit, I think under item 9.1, is this what you're here for, Matt? Under 9.1, which is the request SH to provide more documentation on the 12th Avenue Street project prior to the next council meeting for review. Can we, I'm going to make another adjustment to the agenda and bring Matt Reed from SCH up to give us an explanation on that project, which we have a question on, again, which involves Mesabi Bituminous. Matt Reed from SCH. Matt, good evening.
Good evening. At the committee of the whole meeting, we had a fairly lengthy discussion regarding the 12th Avenue project and getting that closed out, and the result of that discussion was for me to provide some additional information, and I put together a rather detailed engineer-like spreadsheet for you to take a look at. And I thought, when I talked to Britt, I thought it might be easier if I came here and tried to explain it, because there's a lot of numbers on there, but there was a lot of requests on different things. So I tried to include everything that I could, so I got everything all encompassing. So the general, does everybody have a copy of that? Okay. So the general gist of the discussion was, where was the project at the beginning financially, and where did it end up? So working from top to bottom, that's what I tried to lay out for everybody. So when you look at the very top, I've got the pre-bid budget. That was based on our estimates, based on including a project contingency of 10% like we typically do. And we were at about $980,000. That was and some change. That was the original project budget when we got started. A copy of the bid tabulation. There was a couple of councilors that requested the second lowest bidder amount. So I included that on here as well, and you can see that actually there were only two bidders on this project. There was Mesabi Bituminous and KGM. And the second lowest bidder number is on there, so you can see that Mesabi Bituminous was approximately $36,000 lower than KGM, which was also $70,000 under our original engineer's estimate. So we got some good bids on that one. And if you keep following down a little bit farther, so the completion dates, so the total construction cost final, the final application for payment, if it was in front of you today, with liquidated damages not taken out, you'd be looking at $717,932.24. So again, that came in, as we discussed last week, underneath what the original actual bid amount was. We were able to save some money during the project on the construction side of things. Completion dates are there. Others had asked about the completion dates and what they were and what they were supposed to be. And then I believe it was Councilor Johnson had asked the actual calculation of what, per the contract, and then what it actually was based on the actual fees. You can see those numbers there as well. What if you technically took what the contract said, and those calculations, those numbers are there. The part that probably is the most interest, all those numbers brought down to the bottom, the post-construction, so where do we sit today, right? The post-bid budget, as you look at the pre-bid budget versus the post-bid, we were at 980. And then taking the actual bids themselves, before any of the work was done, we were about $910,000. So we were well under, at the point of taking bids, we were well under what the preliminary budget was prior to starting any of this. As we move to the final expenditures, you can see that they actually wound up being even less than that. It was $838,000. So technically, right now, we are, depending on how you look at it, $71,000 to $142,000 under what the original budget was. We're $72,000 under what the bids would have brought in at that time with it, because we had a contingency built into the project too. So we adjusted that once we saw the bids, but we carried a contingency through the project. So the bottom line is, we are almost $150,000 under where we thought we were gonna be when we started the project. So we're well within budget, well under budget from what we thought. So I think that was the general gist of what everybody was asking about. I can certainly answer any more questions or try to go through this in any more detail if you'd like.
So Matt, the question is that for the final payment that's being requested to be approved for Mesaba Bituminous, because we were looking at the completion date was beyond what the date of completion was to be. So the fee that we would charge them for that was how much?
So what we had been discussing on last Tuesday,
Right.
$13,800 was the amount of additional engineering fees. And I listed MTS's fees in here as well, you'll notice, but those are a lot more variable because those do depend really on how many tests they end up needing to take. That's harder for them to estimate what their costs are going to be because it really does depend on number of working days, weather, which again, weather wasn't much of a factor. But so I neglected, or I didn't count any of that in this. $13,800 was the additional engineering fees that you had incurred for us to do the additional time on site. And the question is, where you're going with this, I think, Mayor, is do we deduct that from the final payment or not? That's all I need to know, and then I can proceed with getting the final paperwork and bringing a final payment request to the city. I just need to know which direction you want to head.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson and to Councilor Baraboo.
Matt, I really appreciate this. I can understand this. It makes perfect sense. And I think this does twofold. One, I think it lets contractors know that we are looking at bids and we're going to hold them accountable. I really appreciate the work you put into this and that we have the ability to do this. But I also, because of this information, I feel comfortable moving forward with you putting together the final bid payment without withholding that money from them. I think this is the kind of stuff that I can explain to people when they ask me, why didn't you not pay those guys? Because we're well where we need to be, and I think I really am impressed, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this as we move forward. And like I said, hopefully future contractors will realize that we are counting the days and we are going to hold them as much as we can responsible for what they've bid for us and what we expect out of them. So I appreciate that, and I would, at this point, I'm fine moving forward with the final bid.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. I don't have a problem, Matt, move forward with that. final bid that you showed us originally, and I don't believe it'll change from that, so send it to the next, I guess I'll have to go to the next council meeting, correct, Brett?
So we take no action this time, we just move forward to the next council meeting? I think we need to take some action here.
Need to determine if we're going to charge Masabi Bituminous the fee for the $13,800.
Or not, and then.
Yes, because Matt would prepare the final.
So we don't know what the final payment is. Do we?
It should be $717,932.24. In case I made a typo, don't hold me to that, but it's right, or it should be that.
717,000?
932.24.
Why can't we take action on it tonight?
We don't have all the closeout
Oh,
paperwork
we don't
yet.
have, okay, very good, okay, thank you. Okay, Counselor Bearable?
Mayor, with this explanation, I agree with it. I would move that we waive the penalty fees that Masabi Bituminous would incur on this project.
Okay, moved by Counselor Bearable. Did you get that motion, Pam?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Bearable. Is there support? Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Well, I just think it's justified and legitimate, just based on this explanation here. And then also what I heard the other day when they talked about the complexity of some of the project, when you're integrating old construction with new construction and meeting specifications for ADA, all of that made sense to me as to why there was additional time that needed to be allotted to be able to do that work accordingly. So this seems reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Mayor, and just to clarify for the public that this waiving of the fees is covered under a Minnesota State Aid Fund. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Okay, moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Did you guys need me for anything else this evening?
I don't believe anything that's on the agenda for you. You're not involved with the wastewater treatment and hazardous structure, so no, I think we're good unless you have any questions or comments for us, or you're welcome to sit and listen to the rest of the. I try to.
Welcome, you're laughing.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, thank you. All right. Okay, so let's go back to the regular council agenda to item 7, unfinished business. We have no unfinished business to discuss this evening. Move to item 8, discussion items, 8.1, bids for the commodities for Public Works Department for the year beginning May 1st, 2020. First of all, 8.1I is adopt a resolution approving the quote from Morton International Incorporated for $93.76 per ton for crushed rock salt. Councilor Bearable.
Also move that we do the bid, for the Northern Asphalt Maintenance to provide the, whoops, the wrong one.
Okay, moved by Councilor.
Wrong one. I had item 2 is for the minerals, rock minerals. I had 8.2 that I was looking at the wrong one. I'll restate my motion. I'll move that the bid of $93.76 per ton of Morton rock salt be approved for Compass Minerals Incorporated.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Bearable and supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.1, aye. Adopt a resolution approving the quote from Northwest for asphaltic concrete surface maintenance services at $1.04 per foot.
I'll make that motion, assuming that that's an appropriate cost for that kind of service.
It's less than it was last year. Yes. So moved by Councilor Freely to approve the adopting of a resolution for the quote from Northwest for asphaltic concrete surface maintenance services at $1 a foot. Is there support? Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like for the public's education that this means crack sealing.
Yeah,
For the
crack
common
sealing.
term is, yes, crack sealing of the cracks in the asphalt.
With the white tape you hear, see all over town, so. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson.
Is this a contract we do by ourselves? Okay.
They will come when they're doing everybody else, so the timing is usually varied on when they're doing other entities.
And then the striping we do in conjunction with the county?
County,
That's the
correct.
one. Okay, there's,
Correct.
thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Did you get that motion, Pam?
Yes, I did, sorry.
Thank you very much. Okay. Item 8.2, adopt a resolution for the Evelyn, Virginia Airport FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration CARES Grant.
Federal funds have been released specifically for airports through the federal CARES grant. And it's a very vague grant. It's for any approved expenditure at any airport. So we want to throw our name in the hat and try to get some of those funds.
Counselor Johnson?
Is this something that Evelyn needs to do as well, or?
Yes, the meeting was yesterday, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
So then it'll be a joint venture.
Correct.
I would move the appropriate paperwork for the application and acceptance of the CARES grant.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearable?
Yeah, we do have a resolution in the packet, so it needs to be, approve that resolution for that CARES Act.
Right, it says under 8.2, adopt a resolution for the, right?
And it is in our packet, so.
Correct. Okay, thank you. That's the motion to adopt the resolution. Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 8.3, approve the memo of understanding for the interim library director position as discussed at the committee of the whole meeting. Were there any changes to that job description between the committee of the whole meeting and now?
No.
None. Okay, thank you. Counselor Johnson, Counselor Freely?
I'll move to approve that understanding for the interim library director position.
Okay, a motion by Counselor Freely to approve. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. During this time, now we're being asked to potentially furlough individuals in different departments. I think it was brought up at one point that this could be a potential, since our library is closed and we do not know when the reopening date would be. And I'm not trying to push back or put a monkey wrench in this, but I'm just concerned going forward with the dollar amount if the library is closed.
It's a great point.
And
And
I
we do
guess
have Mr. Silver here, and we've
would like
talked to
to
Mr.
address
Silver. Yeah, we did mention to him that if the library, right, the library staff is closed this week, but all the staff is there. If staff goes home, that is not needed, and that would not, the stipend wouldn't be in effect. Mr. Silver's shaking his head behind you. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess I'm comfortable moving forward with that after we have the personnel.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Yes, appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Further discussion? We have our appointed interim library director, Brian Silver, before the council. Brian, would you like to address the council?
Now, while the library is closed, there will still need to be some things that need to be done. POs will need to be written for books that have been ordered and will be coming in. I'll still take care of those, irregardless as to whether or not there's a staff there or not. In addition to going through the building every so often, turning on some sinks, flushing some toilets so that when we come back in, there's not a lovely odor.
A lovely odor. Thank you, Brian. Okay, thank you. So has there been a motion yet? Yes. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely. Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move to item 9, which is committee reports, the committee of the whole meeting that was held on April 21st, 2020. We've already taken care of item 9.1A and 9.1E. I'll turn the remaining part of this report over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. Item number 9.1B is we had a presentation from lead engineer Bill Hennis, who informed the council that the request from People Service for additional biosolids removal, hauling, and application. When our digester was down at the wastewater treatment plant, the biosolids could not be processed fully. Thus, we were not able to dispose of them in our normal fashion, and so we must remove and apply these particular biosolids in a separate contract. It was moved and supported at the Committee of the Whole to approve the quote from Takala Farms for the removal and hauling of excess biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant and to apply them at United Taconite in the amount of $16,600.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Counselor Johnson to approve and supported by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think Counselor Beyondich and I were on a Zoom call during this time, and I think I might not have had a complete hearing grasp on the issue, but I think Pam had brought up that this was a one-time fee on top of the existing contract, and then I missed when Bill Hennis, I think that's when I petered out there. So could maybe we just go over that one more time, if you don't mind?
Yeah, what
certainly.
happened when the digester was taken down for repairs, we weren't able to process the biosolids fully, so we had to put them off into a pile. And so because they weren't processed to the full extent, we can't put them at our normal location. So they have to be applied to a specially permitted place, and United Taconite agreed to take them. And then we had to ask Takala to haul them in a different form than they normally haul, so it's just
Okay,
a process
thank you for that.
removal.
I knew I didn't hear quite the whole thing, so I
Charlie had a
appreciate-
good analogy. He said they weren't squished enough, but I use the word processed.
What happens, Julianne, they compress those biosolids. In this case, they could not do that, so you can't haul and land apply it like we normally do to farms and stuff unless it's squished.
Okay, well, that was a pleasant conversation. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
We had previously moved a resolution at one time for the LCCMR grant, and we have received $550,000 for the Bailey's Lake Trail project. However, we do have some ad alternates on this project that we would like to see, to seek funding from IRRB. So it was moved and supported to adopt the resolution to apply for additional funding from the IRRB for the Bailey's Lake Trail project in the amount of $250,000.
I'll move.
Moved by Counselor Paulson to approve. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Did you get that motion, Pam?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
Thank you.
There was discussion regarding a lot that the city owns in the industrial addition, and it was moved and supported to decline proceeding with the soil corrections at this time at the parcel known as 090-0180-00401.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and we don't need any further action on that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Item number 9.1F was adopt the resolution to order demolition of hazardous structure located at 117 3rd Street North, parcel ID 090-0010-00610.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Freelieb to adopt this resolution. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freelieb.
Is that going to be done by city crew then?
Yes, it'll be on the winter schedule. If this person will go to court.
Oh.
They will have 30 days.
I was going to say, kind of, let's do this ASAP, but we still have process to
Yeah,
unfold.
There's a process
Okay,
to go.
thank you.
The tenant that owns the property still has some personal items he needs to remove, and
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
So the public knows this is the place just off the Fintone Flyway that's burnt twice in the
Twice.
last year. And the staff have been diligent about boarding it up and doing work there, and the neighbors are also very diligent on calling in when they see people there. So that's part of the reason we're trying to move this along quickly, because it is unsafe.
it is unsafe and it does take time.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Did you get that motion, Pam?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
Thank you.
That is all I have from that meeting.
Okay, that's all from the committee or whole meeting. So we'll move on to item 10, the commission liaison and department head reports. I'll move first to Britt. Do you have anything for the department head reports?
I do. I actually have two resolutions that I have placed on the counselor's desk. The first one is for the authorization for the City of Virginia to make an application to and accept funds from the IRRB Commercial Redevelopment Grant Program. We have been approached by the owners of the buildings at 414 and 416 Chestnut Street or Cane Lakes to be asked if we would be the fiscal agent on a demolition grant for them while they do some interior modifications and renovation. So on your desk is consideration for the city to apply for the IRRB grant on the behalf of the Matsons for that demolition at their buildings at 414 and 416 Chestnut.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Freely. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Gotcha. Counselor Baraboo, is there any further discussion? I should be, seeing none, we have some humor. Seeing further discussion, Counselor Freely? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries.
And the second resolution I placed on your desk was a resolution approving the grant application to the Legislative Commission on Minnesota Resources, or LCCMR, Environment and Natural Resources and Trust Fund for the design, permitting, and construction funding for the Silver Lake Trail Improvement Project. This would be a very large grant request for the 2021 LCCMR cycle, and I believe, Matt, we are looking at quite a large dollar amount. We want to speculate what the dollar amount is.
It's, I'm working on the estimate still, but it's probably in the neighborhood of $600,000, $700,000, something like that.
This would be, if you recall, if you remember the maps we had previously, this would be the floating bridge that cuts across the VPUC. So you would walk from the Children's Memorial Park area over to the parking lot next to Northern State Bank.
And as we testified at, for the LCCMR grant for the Bailey's Lake, some of the information we provided was that this was an interconnect between the Mesaba Trail and our Lake Beautification Trail, and the fact that this was, it was so deteriorated that we needed to make some changes, and it would connect to the Silver Lake Trail, which would actually require some additional funding, and we were told that, well, we'll do it in phases and then come back to us next time and ask for your, some additional funds with respect to your project. So that's what we're doing, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Britt or Matt, can I ask a question, Mayor, on that?
Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, thank you. Is that going to include, there really isn't any sidewalk on that east side. Is that going to include sidewalk all the way to down where Sixth Avenue is?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
We would like to actually complete the trail is what it would do along 6th Avenue. Yes.
Very good. And not to belabor this anymore, but thank you to Senator Tomassoni, Senator Bach, and our lobbyist firm and their efforts in order to get this approved. But this is the first LCCMR grants that were ever granted up in this area, so I think it's a good thing. Very good thing. Thank you. Matt, anything further? Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, so have we voted on that? No. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Sherry, do you have anything you'd like to add? I think we have some information that you want to disseminate.
Why?
Do you have anything?
No, not at this time. I just really appreciate everybody's patience as we go through this very trying, stressful. Trying to find the silver lining in this.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move to the council. Does anybody on the council have a report they'd like to give this evening? Seeing none, I just have one thing, and I think I can speak for all of us, and I'm sure you would like chime in or not, but as this is such a difficult time for all of us, and we see the private sector suffering, and now the public sector is suffering as well. We have to look for some efforts in which to reduce our staff in order to accommodate the loss of revenue that we have, and I want to thank the city council and particularly Britt, our city administrator, Sherry, our finance HR director, and all the bargaining unit representatives and the department heads that have all worked together to try to come to a way to try to mitigate and minimize the impact on the city as much as possible, to minimize the impact on the services that we provide to all of you in this city, and to make sure that we can maintain our essential services while at the same time making sure that we can meet our financial obligations as well. So part of this process is as the announcement was yesterday, and we had that special meeting, that, this is a floating number, but we're looking at a potential for the furlough of up to 28 employees. And so it's devastating, and I think it just turns our stomachs that we have to do this like they do in other communities in the private sector. So I just want to say, on behalf of all of us, thanks for everybody for all your hard work, and we hope that this gets resolved soon, and then the furloughs that we have to are minimized as much as we can. So, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I tried to put my light on when you asked earlier, so
Oh, I
I missed
apologize.
you. No, it was my fault.
I apologize
It
for
wasn't
that.
fast enough. I just wanted to request if we could add to the agenda for Friday, and I need to speak clearly for Pam, if we could add the discussion of the emergency management plan to our agenda for Friday, I would appreciate that. And then I just don't know if the department heads were asked to attend that meeting, but if not, I would like to extend an invitation to the department heads so we can get a little bit of a better picture and a better feel for what, I guess, what some of the direction is going forward.
I think that can be accomplished with proper social distancing. We can do that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And we will do that. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I just about forgot, Mayor. I got a call.
Rats.
I got a call late yesterday from Commissioner Nelson, and he is asking this council to put together a letter or a resolution requesting the county does absolutely nothing and gives the cities their full amount of dollars that are requested from the second half or the first half of taxes this year. We would just like something that he can bring to the full board. So he doesn't think there's going to be the big cut that everybody's talking about, but he would like a letter from us just for knowing that cities are starting to have trouble with balancing budgets.
I see this coming in the form of a motion from you.
Absolutely.
Very good, thank you.
So that is my motion that we.
Okay, moved by Council. Yep, go
Yeah,
ahead.
do we want it as a resolution or do we, I think we'll do it as a resolution, then you can.
Yep.
They have their full meeting to discuss this, I believe, on the 5th of May. So this is why we need to get it out now.
So your request is a resolution from the city council to the St. Louis County for what?
For telling the county the hardship that loss of tax revenue would have on the city of Virginia, basically. And Sherry and Britt can put that together as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beverly. Do we have support for that?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Any further discussion? Did you get that motion, Pam?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Freely.
I would suggest that be CC'd to the Rams organization as well, their support.
An addendum to that resolution to send a copy to Rams, Pam.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further, Councilor Johnson?
Thank you. I'm just curious that we're going to do that, but if they don't physically have the money, how is that possible?
There is, what's going to happen here, and I think Sherry knows already, whatever taxes come in and are collected, they're going to be distributed, okay? That's the bottom line. There's not going to be any holdback because the county, it's not the county's money, it's our money. And it's every city's money. The only portion that they can physically do something with is their own tax dollars on a percentage loss. They can change their own county dollars, but they cannot change the school district, they cannot change the cities. We might get something later as people, if they don't pay right away. There's still a possibility we won't get the full amount. But whatever comes in, is going to be distributed.
I guess I'm curious to know if there's discussion that they're going to not give us our money.
They can't do that by law.
But my question is what is the purpose of the resolution if they can't not give us our money? Like,
What they're going to be discussing at their meeting on the 5th is if they should extend the tax date to July 15th.
15th, basically.
Then we would not get our funds until August 15th.
Yeah, and without penalty, that extension. There's a controversy down there whether they're going to extend it with penalty or without. So that's why they need to make a decision on the 5th.
yes, I would be more comfortable seeing what was going out before I voted yes on that at this
Well,
time.
we're not going to know until all the tax revenue comes in on the 15th or later. We don't know that. That's the big issue. What does it hurt to send a resolution? Because other cities are going to be hurting, and Rams will distribute this to all the members, our copy of our resolution, and hopefully those cities will do something too.
Well, if he asked for it,
He asked
might as
for
well
it.
give it to him.
He asked for it.
When you ask for it, give it to him. Okay. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
Okay, Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Paulson,
Yes.
Beyondich,
Yes.
Johnson,
no,
Beardzelli, Cuffey,
Yes.
Baraboo,
Yes.
Friedlieb.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. And did you get that entire motion, Pam?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else? Anything else to become before the council this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn to our next council meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, May the 12th, 2020 at 5:30 PM. And just a reminder, we do have a special meeting on Friday is it 10 a.m.? 10 a.m. to discuss some personnel issues. So it is a special council meeting to discuss personnel issues. It's not a personnel committee of the whole. It is a special council meeting. So that's for Friday at 10 a.m. So thank you, everybody. Try to be safe and, help your neighbor out whenever you can. We stand adjourned. Good night.
Thanks, Boop.